Dear brothers and sisters, I have come not to call the righteous, but sinners. These are the words of Jesus. And we find them in Matthew's Gospel very much at the background of what we have read in today's passage. We also find them in Luke's Gospel. We find them in Mark's Gospel. The righteous. So what then? Who is the righteous? Who is the righteous? This is a very important question for us to understand the spirituality behind the season of Lent. So we may probe. I'm sure if I asked here in the assembly who the righteous is, we will all naturally say we are not, because we are sinners. Is it not true? Well, we will not probe, but I will tell you something. I want to say to you that we all gathered here are the righteous. Do not be shocked. We are all the righteous. As we point out in other lectures and so on, that the sacred scripture calls the gathering, the assembly of those praying, whether in the synagogue or in the temple or anywhere in Zion, they are called the holy ones. They are called the upright. They are called the righteous. They are called the saints. That was where we got the title saints, even for the New Testament. They're called saints. But then, if we are the righteous, why is Jesus saying that he has not come to call the righteous? So we're in trouble here. The expression, therefore, is ambiguous. And so then what? So then what? It is better if we interpreted that word, typically in our work, to say, he is calling us. But the righteous here are the self-righteous. There we are. The self-righteous. The self-righteous. And that's what we are praying, that we are not going to be the self-righteous. And the word makes it clear that it is the individual who is prompting themselves as holy. Jesus points out who they are in the gospel. The Pharisees and the Sadducees. And Matthew labels them with the word hypocrite. That's a horrible word. You know, somebody had asked in a Greek class, would you please explain to us ce qui est au fond? That is the basis, the word hypocrite, that they understand it better. And the teacher said to him, don't waste your time. Put down the word, and under this rubric, any crime, any evil can go in there. Criminals, money launderers, Al-Shabaab. You can go on and on and on. Husband snatchers, double-mouthed people, deceptive people, go on and on and on and on and on. So, there is no need looking for a definition. But not only are they the hypocrites, they never plan on a change of anything. And so when Jesus came to them, they were in a deep crisis because Jesus knew them thoroughly well. But we will not spend our energies on the righteous, the self-righteous, but we will put our energy with Jesus. Jesus indeed is called the righteous one. The righteous one, whether we read Isaiah 24 or Isaiah 53 in reference to him, or the Acts of the Apostle, chapter 7. So the scriptures speak of him as the righteous one. What does that mean? He is the one in whom God is. He is on that path where God is. So we hear of his righteousness. That means this dialogue that is constant that he has with his Father, with the Trinity. It cannot be missed. That is his righteousness. We hear of our righteousness. What is our righteousness? Our righteousness is our journey. Our conduct and our character as we decisively seek God. And we're on the path. We are not perfect, but we're on the path that will decisively, definitely encounter God. And so we're all here. We are happy. We know that. Whatever our weakness may be, whatever our sinfulness may be. And so at the beginning of Lent, the gospel today is asking of us one thing: to reposition ourselves. It's another opportunity given to us. It is not a time of torment. We're not being called dirty names, filthy names. No. It is another chance. We are a community, we're friends, we're brothers, we're sisters, we work together. We all have a spirituality. To go back to that spirituality, whoever we are, and draw deep from it, refresh ourselves once again. And this righteousness would be like relationships. We actually have fundamentally three forms of relationships. I hope we know that. One is the relationship with God. And Scripture describes this as prayer. Prayer. And we have experts of the spiritual life. Jesus is a master of the spiritual life. We have religious founders who are masters of the spiritual life. St. Ignatius wanted his Jesuits to be masters of the spiritual life. So whether we are sinners or we are on the path, we are masters of the spiritual life. Ask any Jesuit. And do not think it is arrogance when he says, yes, we're masters of the spiritual life because of what we have received, what is given to us. So the second form of this relationship is the relationship with a neighbor. Then the Scriptures point out that this is almsgiving, what other people naturally would call being philanthropic and helping, and so on. The third relationship is with myself. And there, and the Scripture describes this form in a time like this in the words like fasting. But we can today, with all our theology, with all our spirituality, speak of what? Discipline. Greater discipline. Trying to attain this discipline day after day. What is the need in fasting? Isaiah 58 says, if you are not talking to one another, if you are sulking all the time, if you're talking behind your neighbor, and you can go on the list. If you're coming back to be a hypocrite like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who do not need the Master, the Lord. So what then is that fasting? And especially when people know that we are fasting and that we are living this life. So discipline. If I'm able to put up with difficulties, then I am managing the discipline. If I'm able to talk favorably of my brothers, then it is a better fasting. If I find the presence of Christ, the difficulties of Christ in all the circumstances surrounding me, if I am punctual at work, if I am at my work all the time, that is a fasting. Why St. Ignatius said to his Jesuits, there is the students, we do not recommend any special thing, but what? But your work, be at it, be punctual, do not play with it. That is your fasting. And tell those who are in charge of you to think in those terms. Now I just want to come back by concluding to Jesus, who taught his disciples how to pray. This is a project we must do for others who know us. But before he taught them how to pray, he taught them how not to pray. And that is part of the gospel of the day, how not to pray. These are the preambles, if you like. Very briefly, he taught them how to meditate. Meditate with events. Meditate over events. Meditate over the Bible texts. He taught them to contemplate. We always say he taught them our Father, but he taught them much, much, much more. He taught them how to contemplate by quieting the mind. By quieting the mind. He taught them how to pray by aligning my will with God's will. It is very tough, but they had to learn that. We know also that whenever we ask, God gives it. I stand here as a witness to that. Whenever we ask, God gives it. And people say, what? What are you talking about? God gives it? No, God gives it on the spot. But then, are you receiving it? Are you full of resistance? Are you resisting God? Because we resist God in various forms. We resist God's presence. We resist God's suggestions. God who dwells right deep down in our hearts. We can resist that. And so we talk of praying and never getting it. May this season of Lent be a season in which we ourselves can raise our morals, can be energized by God more, St. Ignatius says, to attain a momentum in what we are doing with the spiritual life, to get the rhythm of Jesus, who always left early in the morning to be alone in prayer, to get that momentum to vibrate strongly with him. It is through that way that our righteousness will exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, of the Sadducees and their scribes.